Hello and welcome to another installment of the USO's MVP series, Military Virtual Programming. I'm Becca Frucht, your host and moderator. I'm also a program officer with the Arthur N. Blank Family Foundation. I am so thrilled about today's webinar. I'm super geeked out because it is Bill Nye the Science Guy, American icon. It's pretty exciting. Let's welcome him into the webinar. There he is.
Hello.
Hello.
We're Okinawa someplace, yeah?
Yeah, we're gonna, there's folks joining from all over the world. We're gonna visit with some folks too, our military kids that are gonna be joining us today. So to start off, what have you been geeking out about lately?
Well, two things. First of all, LightSail 2, the planetary-sized spacecraft, is still going wild. And we're taking these extraordinary pictures, the crew, the team, many of whom, by the way, are students in college here in California, in San Luis Obispo. There's a very well-known university, the Polytech Institute. And it's UC, University of California, San Luis Obispo is really a great school, and they are running our spacecraft. And so what they've figured out is how to keep it in orbit about a year longer than anybody thought. So even when even when you're in outer space, like where the International Space Station is, our spacecraft is somewhat higher. The orbit is somewhat higher than the international. There's still a few air molecules. It's surprising, but there are enough up there when you're going 12 kilometers a second, 7 miles a second. You run into these air molecules and it drags the spacecraft down. But anyway, check it out on planetary.org. That's the first thing. The second thing, you guys, just 2 weeks ago, scientists have decided, they've convinced themselves that these data taken with telescopes on spacecraft and telescopes here on Earth's surface, that in the atmosphere of Venus is an unusual molecule that's come to be called phosphine. And it's an old way, chemists love to make up words, and phosphorus is an old word having to do with fire and light. And phosphine is a molecule that has a phosphorus in the middle and 3 hydrogens around the outside. And it's just like ammonia. And I've never heard of ammonia. Yes, you have. It's when you smell like the real old-fashioned Windex. That glass cleaner is ammonia. Anyway, the only way that we know to get phosphine on a planet the size of Venus or the Earth, the only way we know to get that gas is with microbes, with bacteria-like organisms or archaea-type organisms that give off this gas. So are you telling me, are you saying to me that there are organisms living in the atmosphere of Venus?
I think that's what you just told us.
Dude, if I may, dude.
You may, dude. I think that is worthy of a dude.
Because understand, the surface of Venus is so hot. How hot is it? It's so hot, it would melt lead. Like if you have a lead fishing weight or old-fashioned lead toy soldiers or dolls, they would just melt on the surface of Venus because the atmosphere holds in so much heat. But way up high in the Venusian sky, it's not that hot. It's like 30 Celsius, 25 Celsius, like a nice day here on Earth. And are there things living in the air of Venus? Like, whoa. And that was discovered just a couple of weeks ago, you guys. It's amazing.
All right. Well, those were pretty legit geek outs if you're going to do it. Yeah, I knew you would have some of those up your sleeve. So we're actually ready to have some folks join us from a classroom in Okinawa at Ryukyu Middle School. So the teachers are Mrs. Claudia White and Mr. Golden. So let's bring them on in to join us.
Ms. White and Mr. Golden's students. Greetings, you guys. Greetings, everyone.
Morning.
Look at you all socially distanced, wearing your masks. I got a mask, but I'm home by myself, so I'm not wearing it.
That's awesome. So y'all have some questions. Oh, you've got a plethora of masks, I see. I would expect you to be prepared, Bill.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. So, you know, I'm of a certain age, you guys. And whatever this crazy virus is, it affects people my age way more than it affects people your age. And we think it has to do with how an old person's immune system reacts. My immune system has been exposed to so many colds and flus and just regular old germs that somehow this virus triggers the whole thing to go off at once. And all my immune system goes crazy. Whereas you guys, oh, another virus. Oh, that's interesting. And then you get over it. So anyway, I'm very diligent, you know what I mean? Very careful about wearing a mask all the time.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Do we want to start with our first question? All right, go ahead, Michael. Or
how can we help understand science's importance and appreciate its role in our daily lives?
Can you speak up just a little bit louder? I feel struggling to hear you. You want to come closer?
Yeah, get closer to the microphone. Thank you.
Closer to the microphone right at the top. There you go.
How can we help us understand science's importance and appreciate its role in our daily lives? Thank you.
Science is important in daily life.
Mrs. White, I really couldn't make it out. Was it why science is important?
Yes. Why? How can the students understand the importance of science and appreciate it in their daily life?
Well, young woman in the pink mask, let us keep in mind that you are on the other side of the earth. Where I am sitting on the west coast of North America in Los Angeles, California, it is the 28th of October in the afternoon, around 10 minutes after 5. Where you are, it's 10 minutes after 9, and it's the 29th of October. My friends, when I was your age, or if I can give you the grandpa voice, when I was your age, there was no such thing. Nobody's talking on a video phone call halfway around the earth. It's impossible. I was at the World's Fair in 1964 and 65 in New York, the town so nice they named it twice. And there was this extraordinary booth you could go in and have a video phone call with somebody else who was just a couple meters, 20, 30 feet away. And that was like this big deal. And that was 60 years ago. And so it is just now that we're able to have this kind of call, and that's because of science. So what people discovered was that you could make electricity with a magnetic field that was moving or changing. That enabled us to have electricity at all. Then over the next century and a half, people figured out how to make electricity go through a series of switches. And then with a series of switches, they enabled us to build a computer. And when I was a kid, the switches were vacuum tubes. Let's see if I can swing the camera around. There's a radio over there that I built when I was in 7th grade. It was a kit, and it has vacuum tubes. And vacuum tubes were these glass tubes that electricity would flow through, and you could control the voltage, the pressure of the electricity, as it's called, and make it act like a switch. Well, then transistors were discovered, and this is where you take silicon, the famous element silicon. You may have heard of Silicon Valley, which is where all these technology companies emerged. They take silicon and put certain perfectly controlled impurities in it, and that acts like a switch without any moving parts. And that's what's in your phone. That's what's in computers. That's what's running the whole show here. And this has enabled us to have these conversations. And so when I was a kid also, there were fewer than 3 billion people in the world. Well, now there's 7.7, almost 8 billion people. And by the time you're my age, there certainly will be 9 billion people and maybe even 10 billion people. And they're all going to want to eat something. And we will feed them all because of science, because of the science of farming, the science of agriculture. And so science is what makes the world, our world go round, you all. It's what enables us to live these extraordinary lifestyles. And so that's why I think it's the most wonderful pursuit, the most wonderful way to spend your time is anything involving science. And I'm a mechanical engineer. Mechanical engineers use science to make stuff. That's my business. I used to work on a drawing board, making stuff for pumping water around, and then later for the black boxes, the electronics on airplanes that are used to navigate. This is a business jet. We had this, but it wasn't a flight data recorder, that famous thing. It was another box. They're all called black boxes because they're black, because black objects radiate more heat than shiny or white objects. What? Yes, that's right. So if you, next time it gets cold, look at the roof of a car. The cars that are painted dark will have frost on them or water condensed, and the cars that are painted white probably won't, because the black radiated more heat, got cold, and then the water in the air condensed on the roof of the car. Whoa. That's a great question.
Do we want to do our next question?
Yeah.
All right, you ready, buddy? Get real close and speak up real clear.
What tips can you recommend to keep us engaged and successful in this new environment?
What made me want to get into science? Is that what you said?
Try one more time, Malachi.
Sorry, you guys. I think there's a lot of distance between you and the microphone, and you're wearing masks. Just take it.
Go closer. Speak a little slowly, more clearly.
What tips can you recommend to keep us engaged and successful in this new environment?
Well, I'll tell you. Make sure you learn algebra, since you asked. Now, I don't know if you know algebra, you've probably heard the word. It's in mathematics where we use letters to represent numbers. And it's changed the world. Okay, in algebra, that word comes from the word for bones. So apparently in what we nowadays refer to as the Middle East, near where Iran, Iraq is, and these two famous rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, where those people lived, they invented this way of thinking about numbers at least 10,000 years ago, probably more than that. And so when you are able to think abstractly, do you know what I mean? Imagine that numbers you will find a number even though you don't quite know it yet. That way of imagining numbers enables you to think imaginatively about all sorts of things. Not only do you think so-called abstractly away from what you see about numbers, it enables you to think away from what you see about everything. So if you want to be successful as a scientist or engineer or an accountant or a teacher like Ms. White, learn algebra. And the trouble with it is, you guys, it takes practice. I'm sorry. It just takes practice. It took practice for me. It's going to take practice for you. That's why you go to school. Get over it.
Thanks so much for joining us. Had so much fun with y'all. Take care.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah,
boy.
we have to move on.
Oh, okay. Are they going to still be listening to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We're going to go to the mainland now, right? We're going to South Korea.
We're going to go to another live location. We're going to take some questions. So just so all y'all know out there, you can be submitting questions through the Q&A function. That's on Zoom. And so we have one of those. So the first one is from Rachel Stout, who's listening. Have you had any science experiments go wrong? And
Oh,
what
yeah.
happened?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So here's the one I talk about, you guys. This was the worst day of my life. And it was all right.
I shouldn't be laughing. This is very serious.
Well, I'm trying to make you laugh. So if you've ever done this, there's a very well-known science demonstration that we can do now with plastic water bottles. You get very, very hot water in the water bottle, very, very hot water. You gently pour the hot water out, put the cap on really fast, put the cap on right away. Now put the water bottle in some ice water, or just let it cool. Let it sit there on the countertop or on the desk, let it cool off. What has happened is the air that was in the bottle has been replaced with water vapor. And we forget that water vapor is a gas. It's in just like helium or oxygen or nitrogen, other gases you may have heard of, or phosphine. All right. And so when the water vapor condenses or changes from a gas back to a liquid, it takes up hardly any room. In other words, it was in this much water bottle. Now it's in just a couple drops of water. And then atmospheric pressure, all the air around it will crush the bottle, will crush it like with your
I have
fist.
seen this.
All right, that's all cool. Okay, here it is, plastic bottle. Thank you, Uncle Bill. That's great. Well, I was on a TV show when I was starting out, and I tried to do the same thing with an oil drum, a great big metal oil drum. And it's not that hard in the US industrial areas to get what they're called reconditioned oil drums. They've been, whatever they were used for originally, it was oil or dishwashing liquid or even shampoo, all that's rinsed out and it's clean, a clean reconditioned oil drum. All right. So I boiled water in the bottom, just a little bit of water, and you could see a big burner, a big gas burner, the kind of burner, if you've ever seen those people, you may be one of them, who deep fry a turkey in a few seconds.
I'm from the South, so yes, I have seen
Right.
this.
So, okay, boiling water. That's great, Bill. Okay, the steam comes out. The oil drum is hot to the touch. Okay, we're in good shape. Put the plug in, and this is a real word, you guys, in a barrel or a drum. The plug is called a bung. It's an old, I guess, Norwegian or Scandinavian word. You put the bung back in the bung opening. All right. Then my idea was on television, this would be cool. I'd cool it off with a fire extinguisher. You know, you may have seen them. They shoot carbon dioxide and it's these little chips of dry ice will come. Well, it didn't work. Okay. The thing didn't cool off and I'm banging on the drum trying to get it. Oh, God. It just didn't work. So then later I figured out how to do it. You take that, say, do the same thing, boil the water, put the bung in the bung opening. Okay, this and that. And you put it in a pool, a kiddie pool. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes they're inflatable. You fill them with water for little kids in the summertime. And so you put ice water in that thing and then get a couple people wearing big, thick gloves to put the oil drum in the water. And wham! It just, the whole thing just as though crushed by a giant's fist.
This sounds very exciting.
Oh, it's cool. But the first time I did it was horrible. It didn't work. I was so embarrassed. I'm still upset about it. I got to have a sip. I'm some water. I'm sorry.
I think you have proven yourself to the world that, you know.
Well, you asked.
You know your deal, but we did ask. And very exciting, we are ready to go to our next live location, Osan Middle and High School in South Korea. So it's a
combination school. That's great.
I think so. So we're going to have them join us. Hello, Osan.
Hello, this is Brad Helsel. I'm with students from Osan Middle High School in South Korea.
Greetings.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, guys, make some noise.
Oh, look at everybody. Oh, cool. That's great.
Okay, so we have some students ask some questions here. First is Haven Lokes.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Go ahead.
How did you become interested in science?
The first thing I'd like to say to that question is I don't remember. It was so long ago. But with that said, this I do remember. We were sitting on the porch. I was a little kid. I may have been 5. I may have been even 4 years old. And I got stung by a bee. The first time I'd ever been stung by a bee. And it scared me and it hurt. And I'm sorry, everybody, I was a little kid. I was crying, all right? And my mother put ammonia on the bee sting. And you guys, you may not know the word ammonia, but you know what it is. It's the smell of Windex, that window cleaner. The main thing in it is a chemical called ammonia. And many air conditioning systems, like in a school like yours, will use ammonia because it's just the right, it's a liquid or a gas. It changes back and forth very easily. Anyway, the ammonia put it on the bee sting and it felt better right away. It somehow took the molecule of the bee venom and made it break down. But on the bottle was a skull and crossbones. I wore an orange tie for Halloween. On the bottle is skull and crossbones. Like, my mother's trying to kill me, which I was a little boy. I can understand where she'd want to kill me. I got that. But that amazed me that a poison could make this other venom feel better. And then my brother, my older brother, who is still older, had a chemistry set and he made something with these 2 powders in the palm of your hand that smelled like ammonia. And I'm like, that's amazing. And so I think we were playing Crazy Eights, you know, that card game. And I got stung by the bee it was a hot summer day in Washington, D.C. And I got stung on my leg. Man, that hurt. But to this day, I have a periodic table hanging in my office all the time because the relationship between the chemicals is it's amazing. The phrase is mind blowing. It's mind blowing. That's a great question. Thank you, Haven.
So much.
Thank you.
Okay, here's Landon Young.
Hey. So, Light Sail 2 was cool when it launched on
Follow Light
Falcon.
Sail 2, right on, right on.
That mission, it was just Falcon Heavy school.
Falcon Heavy,
And
we
then
were there. People from the planetary side. Are you a member? Is that what you're going for there? Of the
Yeah,
planetary system?
I watched it live. It's pretty cool.
Anyway, it didn't take
Yeah.
off till 2 a.m, so it was dark. It was just spectacular. Whoa, lit up. Go ahead.
Yeah. So then, it deployed sail and it actually raised its orbit, which is awesome. So what future plans do you have for like the light sail technology? Like, do you plan to go to like Venus because of that, like phosphine in the atmosphere?
Yeah, so he's asking a great question. So everybody, I was in class in 1977 when a very famous astronomer named Carl Sagan talked about this idea of the so-called solar sail spacecraft. So this is a spacecraft, a satellite or what have you, that has these great big shiny sails. And imagine this thing, only the size, ours is about the size of a boxing ring. That's what we like to tell people. And so the spacecraft is here in the middle and the sails are deployed like this. And here's what's hard to believe. Sunlight, any light, is made of tiny particles. If you do experiments to find tiny particles of light, you find tiny particles of light. If you do experiments to find waves of light, you get waves of light. And there's an expression in physics or science called the wave-particle duality, the two at once quality of light. Anyway, when you get one of these things in space, the momentum of the photons, even though they have no mass, they don't weigh anything. They are pure energy and they have momentum. They can push things. The momentum of the photons will push the spacecraft. And so this guy talked about this in 1977. They tried to fly a mission like this in 2005. It crashed in the ocean in an area called the Barents Sea. That's not too far from northern Japan. And then it's part of the Arctic Ocean. It's an area of the Arctic. If you're a fisherman, you know, you can tell the difference. I'm not an expert. Anyway, then in 4 years ago, the Planetary Society, which Carl Sagan started in 1980, and I'm a member. In fact, I'm not just a charter member. Now I'm the CEO. I'm the head guy of the Planetary Society. We managed to fly one of these. And then last year, we managed to fly the second one of these that was much more maneuverable. So what we do, here's the Earth in orbit, and you guys are the sun. We fly edge on toward you, twist in space, get your sunlight to push us around this way, then edge on toward you and twist and go toward you, and it's working. And so we were able to prove for the first time in history that you could raise the orbit of a solar sail in orbit around the Earth, around a planet. Now, while you're there in South Korea, a few moments ago, we were talking with people on Okinawa, Japan. The Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, flew a solar sail mission way out in deep space, and it could steer very slowly. Just, it would take over a day to turn even a few degrees, but it worked. Anyway, so we've proven this technology in these two very different missions, space flights. And so he's asking, what's next? Well, a lot of people want us to build one that would go around the moon. But what everybody really wants to do is build a huge one, a kilometer or the better fraction of a mile across, and send it way out to Jupiter. And JAXA, Japanese Aerospace Exploration, is going to do that and send a solar sail to Jupiter. That flight will take about 10 years, but there's no fuel. There's no rocket. Once it's up flying, once it's up on orbit or a little past that, sunlight will push it as far as you want. Whoa. So you guys check it out, because it was an idea, a hypothesis, a theory that took 40 years to prove that would work. And we like to talk about Johann Kepler. So Johann Kepler was an astronomer after whom after whom Kepler's laws are named. That was a joke. And he saw Comet Halley, what when I was a kid we called Halley's Comet, is now officially the name's been researched and they call it Comet Halley. We call it Comet Halley. He saw Comet Halley in 1607, and he noticed that the tail of the comet always pointed away from the sun, whether the comet was going in toward the sun or away from the sun, the tail always pointed away. And Kepler reasoned, he thought about it and he reasoned there must be something about sunlight that can give things a push, this tail of the comet. It's actually two tails of a comet. They're right next to each other. And so he figured that out in 1607. And it took us until 2018 to really prove that it would work. It's pretty cool, you guys. That's a great question, man. Thank you for being a member of the Planetary Society. The next thing we'll want to do is send some kind of mission, some kind of spacecraft to Venus, because this phosphine gas, and you called it phosphane, and that's kind of the old name or another name for it, phosphine or phosphane. This gas may mean that there is or was something alive way up in the air of Venus. In the same way here on Earth, there is a whole type of organism, microscopic bacteria, archaea kind of organism, that lives in the air, never reaches the ground. Whoa. And people call it aeroplankton. Like in the ocean, we have plankton. Well, people call the living things in the sky aeroplankton. Whoa, whoa. It's such an exciting time, you guys, with all the other stuff that's going on in the world, this pandemic and all this. What's going on in space exploration is amazing. It's a great question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Osan Middle and High School. We'll get a good big wave from the auditorium there. Bye, y'all. All right,
Cool.
so we have one more question that we're going to pull.
Well, I don't have to
from
go.
our-
If you guys can stick around, we'll do a couple more. Did I
Okay,
give
cool. We
answers that are too long? Yeah,
No, of course, never too long. I mean,
sure. Okay.
you got
Go
to
ahead.
make sure that you boggle the mind with every answer.
Okay.
So this is from one of our pals here, Gary Andrews. What do you plan to be for Halloween? This is an important question.
So, okay. You guys, I live in a neighborhood in Southern California, in Studio City. It's part of, I'm in the city of Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a huge city. All right. So one year I dressed up as kind of a rocker, a rock band member, had a big wig, had a leather jacket, put an X on my face in black makeup. And kids came to the door. I thought you were the science guy. Why aren't you the science guy?
They
So,
were very upset.
so I just put on the lab coat and safety glasses and do that. Now this year, the results are not in, and I don't know if it's going to work, but we don't want to be in contact with each other. We want to be socially distanced. We want to be wearing our masks. Okay. So what I'm rigging up are these 3 very long plastic pipes that have to be supported on, if you know what a sawhorse is, a thing you use in a carpentry shop to hold stuff up. And I'm going to have to use some lumber and my electric drill screw gun to mount this thing. So I want to be able to sit on my porch and push pieces of candy down the tube. So you might look online and expect that you could just have gravity do it, that you drop candy in one end and it would fall down to the sidewalk, which is quite a ways away. It's like 10 meters, 30 feet out here. All right, 33 feet. I don't think that's going to work. I think instead, what will happen is I'll be able to load the tube with candy, and each piece of candy will push another piece of candy down the tube. That's what I'm hoping. And
Okay,
what
so
if
you're
it
going to have
doesn't
to
work?
have like steady stream of candy.
Well, you're going to have
in
to
there.
accept that there'll be candy in the tube all the time. Now, another thing, ladies and gentlemen, okay, I'm, Uncle Bill, I'm well-meaning grown up. I'm not a bad person. I got chocolate granola bars. Okay, they're granola bars, all right, but they're chocolate. All right. Anyway, nope. You guys would come by my house, throw them back. No, I don't want those. So don't worry, everybody. It's Mars, Snickers, Kit Kat, Three Musketeers. It's a real deal. Okay. It's real, bad for your teeth. Your parents hate it when you eat it. Delicious, wonderful candy. It's the real stuff. And
But
so,
yeah, I mean, look, all the candies you named, those are science experiments, right? I mean, who knows really what's
well,
in them.
they're
It's-
calories. And, if you guys don't know this, you've heard about calories. You're living in South Korea and many of you are in Japan, where the metric system is what you use. I mean, you got 10 fingers, of course. You don't have this this old English system left over from kings and queens in Britain or whatever they were doing. And so calories, a kilocalorie, 1,000 calories for a chemist is the same as a capital letter calorie in British usage, is the same as a joule, Joule. James Prescott Joule did this fabulous research where he showed the connection between heat and mechanical work. And mechanical work, everybody, is just generally when you get something to spin, when you get heat to make something spin. That's what a car engine is. I mean, that's what a jet engine, we get something to spin. Anyway, you'll see J, those are joules. What people do, food scientists all over the world, they take Snickers bars and they burn them. They burn them and they capture all the heat. And that's how they determine the number of joules or calories in food. You get the water to evaporate and then you burn it. And so what you're able to do as an animal here on Earth, you're in your tummy are chemicals, and you've probably heard this word, they're enzymes that make the same chemical reaction as when you burn it, except at a very low temperature. And then you're able to capture that chemical energy and run your muscles and your mouth and your brain and everything. It's amazing.
It is amazing. Well, I have an amazing list of locations that have joined us today to hear you, Bill. Japan, Okinawa, obviously, Maryland, Italy, Germany, South Korea, California, New York, Virginia, Hawaii, the UK, Colorado, Nevada, Louisiana, Guam, Florida, Washington, Alaska, New Mexico, Illinois, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Georgia, Arizona, and Minnesota.
That's great.
Yeah.
You know, both of my parents, you guys, both of my parents were in World War II. They were both veterans, and they greatly appreciated the work of the USO. And so I just say again, thank you to your parents. Thank you, everybody who's listening, the grown-ups who are listening, who are military members or veterans. Thank you for your service. It also shows you the extraordinary influence of the United States. The United States has got some problems, to be sure. But the idea of the United States is pretty good. And the US Constitution, which is available in paperback, has become a model for governments all over the world. And so the world is slowly becoming more and more democratic. By that, I mean more and more where people vote to get their leaders rather than being kings and queens, descendant from other people who fought wars 10,000 or 5,000 years ago. Instead, everybody agrees to vote. In our case, in the United States, every 4 years, some countries every 2, some countries every 6 or 10. Anyway, it's really an extraordinary idea when you listen to Becca listing all the people all over the world who are listening to this Zoom call, this software video call. It really shows you how influential the United States is and how important the service of you and your parents is to really the world. And so thank you all very much for being on station, being on bases around the world, and promoting the idea that we are all in this together. And I like to remind people, in the US Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, what they call Clause 8, the phrase between commas, refers to the progress of science and useful arts. And even in 1786, they realized the importance of science. And useful arts, I think, was how you would describe what nowadays we call engineering in the 18th century or the 1700s. Engineers use science to make things like computers and cameras and microphones and hats and frames on the wall and stuff like that.
Things.
So anyway, thank you all. It's great to be included.
Well, I'm so glad that science got a shout out in the Constitution, and we really appreciate you geeking out with us today. And thank you so much to all our military teachers and students who joined and watched and brought such fantastic questions. Make sure and stay connected with the USO and the MVP series. You can follow the USO on all those social media outlets to figure out who's coming on next. Thank you so much, Bill, for taking time.
Just while we're here, this is my next book. My new book came out yesterday. Yesterday here in the States.
Right.
It came out on the 27th in the US, on the 28th in Japan, Korea, Okinawa. So anyway, thank you all. Let's go out there and change the world.
Let's do it. All right, y'all take care. Stay safe. Thanks so much, Bill.
Thank you, Becca.